When was your biggest I should not be laughing moment? At a funeral. The catered food was exceptionally tasty. My dad leans over and says, "Man, he should die more often." Hardest I've ever tried to keep a straight face. In the Indian culture, when the girl gets married, usually after the religious stuff and the reception is over, the girl goes back to her family's house and they send her off to the new family in an emotional scene. Everyone is crying, hugging, sending well wishes. This cousin of mine wasn't really popular among the cousins, and while she was being sent off in the car, the brothers push away the car from the driveway. One of my cousins said, "Get the duck out of Birmingham." I could not stop laughing for the life of me. I know when she looks back at the wedding video she's going to be pissed off. My grandpa had been on hospice care for about a month and was in his house. We were having a family party there, and it was apparent that he wasn't going to make it much longer. So with everyone gathered around him, my grandma whispered, "It's okay, you can go to him." He slowly passed away minutes later. My whole family was kind of standing around, processing what just happened, when my little cousin, about 5 years old, says, "We still get to eat cake, right?" Edit. Yes, we did eat that cake like Bruce Goddenbogtrotter. A couple of years ago my father passed away unexpectedly at the age of 50. He died at home and was not able to be revived from paramedics. Due to formality he had to be taken to the hospital via ambulance, and the family was able to say goodbyes, spend time with him before the funeral home came. I will never forget growing up, my dad used to joke around and say always, "Make sure you put on clean underwear and matching socks before you walk out the door. You never know if you will be hit by a bus and you don't want people to see your dirty jitch." I think it was more a way to give us crap about putting on clean clothes. Long story short, when I seen him lying on that table, in a state of shock, I lifted up the sheet over him and peeked at his feet. I started to laugh hysterically. The rest of the family just stared, waiting for some reply. I said he wore clean socks, but I'm not checking his underwear. My sister was the only one who got the joke, and she too started laughing. In my mind, I knew my dad would have got a kick out of it. While trying to teach two elderly, nervous Japanese ladies English, and they have to make the sentence, "I take my recycling to the dump," from a collection of words, or add remove words I can't quite remember. I dump. I take dump. I take my dump home. Fuck. I had to bite myself several times to hold it together. When in college, one of my fellow students was Vietnamese and still having some trouble with English. I asked her what she was doing for the weekend, and she said, "My friends and we will be tripping to the zoo," and I just fucking lost it. I explained to her that maybe she meant traveling or some such, and when I explained what tripping was, she lost it too. So we'd leave each other ducked up animal pictures in our mailboxes for the rest of the year. I would imagine the zoo would be a pretty intense place to trip. I was at a wake for a friend's grandmother. Out of nowhere, I hear someone across the hall yell, "Who the hell pooped in the VCR player?" I lost it. I have no idea if someone actually did, or if it was a funeral home worker, or what, but the randomness of it made me laugh uncontrollably for a solid couple of minutes. I was surprised I was the only one. Everyone else was talking softly or crying. I was laughing loudly and uncontrollably. My husband and I went to the wedding of one of his coworkers. Before the ceremony, a teenage girl got up to sing a song. I don't remember which one. Probably Wind Beneath My Wings or something. And it was real bad. Everyone was standing and watching this, and I noticed my husband fidgeting next to me. He's putting his hands in his pockets and then taking them out and crossing them over his chest. I look over and he whispers to me, "I don't know what to do with my hands." It was my breaking point. Everything happening was so awkward and I suddenly couldn't stop laughing. I felt horrible, but I couldn't help it. My grade 6 teacher was telling a story that involved a student pissing themselves after falling asleep at their desk. I started laughing because I still wet the bed at the time and thought it was supposed to be funny. It was too late to stop once I realized nobody else thought it was funny. So I committed to it and just belted out laughter. Got kicked out of class and a lecture saying how insensitive it was because there might be kids struggling with wetting the bed in our class. It was embarrassing. I took a speech class my freshman year of college. The final was a 10-minute presentation about anything you had interest in. There were a lot of foreign students in the class and this Asian girl gave her speech on ice cream. I kid you not, her accent turned ice cream into ass cream. As cliche as could be, and I had to keep my cool for the whole presentation. Vanilla ice cream. Neapolitan ice cream bars. Even the professor was having a hard time not laughing. I was working on a stroke ward and we hoisted a lady over a bedpan to shit. The ward was silent, but her shit was loud. Almost as loud as her groan of relief when she let it all out. I couldn't handle it and had to leave. It was that part of a long day during a long week where you're starting to feel crazy. I was laughing so hard Elle was crying. Luckily for me the patient had severe hemianopia and was registered deaf, so she didn't give a damn I was laughing because she didn't know. Another lucky stroke was that my educator at the time was a chilled out, a relaxed fellow and gave me a telling off instead of failing me. I'm 26 and fart noises and poo still make me laugh like a schoolboy. I broke out laughing after my dad's funeral. He was about to be carried out of the church and I leaned into my mom and said, "You remember the movie Fatso with James Coco? Would it be bad if the casket fell and dad rolled out?" Apostrophe. We both laughed, as dad liked the movie and found that scene quite funny. The priest looked at us and we explained he had seen the movie and smiled. My husband and I got news that his uncle Ted had died. My husband said, "Ted's dead, baby. Ted's dead." I went into convulsions with laughter. I don't know what was more inappropriate, me laughing or him quoting from Pulp Fiction. Alright. So a couple years back, me and my family all decide to go see a movie together. And we settle on some new boxing movie with Sylvester Stallone. It didn't look good. But then again I wasn't paying, so I might as well go. The movie was as boring as expected. But when we started getting up to leave, the theater darkens again. Some random logo pops up. So we sit down again. Then some slow, almost sad sounding song starts playing, along with a photo reel of two people. Some pictures only have the one. It's a guy and a girl, neither of which are attractive at all, at random places. Mostly in our shitty town. Due to the sad music and the 2006 Windows Movie Maker editing quality, my family and I sat laughing our collective asses off at what we figure is either an attempt to get back together or a shitty missing persons ad. Then, the music dies down and a "Will you marry me?" pops up on screen. Then, the guy gets out of his chair and pulls out a ring about 2 or 3 rows directly below us. To top it all off, when I went to the bathroom after, I bumped into the guy and he gave me the dirtiest glare he could muster. All in all, it was a very awkward experience. Set right after the least romantic movie you could think of. 10/10ths would do again. Mentally challenged gay boy broke into a rousing remix of Amazing Grace and Moving On Up and my best friend's funeral. We laughed so hard the ambulance was called because my other best friend had an asthma attack. At my grandmother's funeral, you know how they talk about the stages of mourning? Well, I'd already gone through the crying stage by the time the funeral rolled around. I just didn't feel that emotional at all. When there were speeches being made, I wasn't paying attention and my mind was drifting off elsewhere. I burst out laughing when I remembered a video I'd seen earlier that day. It was one quick burst, and then I tried my best to cover it up, stifling a few chuckles here and there. The person making a speech at the time noticed this, as well as a few people around me. He looks directly at me and into the microphone, says, "How dare you?" Apostrophe. It was probably the most embarrassing moment of my life. After the speech is finished I had to leave, just to avoid seeing the old man that called me out. Back when I was a hospital guard, a psych patient was brought in by the cops who looked exactly like one of the other 2 guys on my team. Same haircut and color, same mustache, same nose and bone structure. He was just a lot messier because he was a very disturbed person. It was dumb, but it had been a slow day and I found this to be really funny. We got called in to stand by in his seclusion room while the doctor interviewed him. The other dude was standing directly across from me while the guy was being interviewed about extremely serious psychological and drug problems. My eyes kept darting between this guy and the other guard. and I just started giggling uncontrollably for like the 20 minutes of the interview. I kept having to pinch my leg to try and keep it in check, and kept failing. I'm pretty sure the guy thought I was laughing at either his schizophrenia or his heroin addiction at any given time. Obviously the doctor and nursing staff were ducking pissed. I'm surprised I was allowed to keep my job after that. A little girl in my hometown had cancer, and there were massive fundraisers for her for years. The day she died, my co-worker said, "I want my money back," and I laughed so hard I almost lost my job. I have an uncontrollable urge to laugh at the most inappropriate times. When I was in English class, the new kid sat next to me, and I asked if he was okay cause he seemed upset. He said, "My auntie died 2 weeks ago." I bursted into laughing, and I couldn't stop. I think not because of that, but it was just so random and unexpected as I was already in a great mood. Eventually he started laughing cause I was laughing. Then someone asked why we were laughing, and we said, because his auntie died. We are good friends now. When I was 10, my 8-year-old cousin thought he'd teach me how to control dogs. So he took a stick and started whipping his 2 Australian cattle dogs with impunity. Soon, the 2 dogs started to attack him, and as he began crying and screaming, I couldn't stop laughing. I crawled up on top of a car and laughed until I cried. His mom called me a monster, but I, to this day, believe it was he who the monster be. About a month ago, I, a medic, got called to a guy that got hit by a car. He was hit so hard, his pants came halfway off. He was obviously dead, but we had to hang around for the coroner. When he showed up, he rolled the guy on his belly to put the cadaver bag under him. I saw something on his ass and turned on my flashlight to see. Just as I figured out what it was, the coroner yells, "It sure scared the shit out of him!" Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. My whole crew had to turn away so the news crew couldn't record us laughing. My wife is currently in the last stage of her pregnancy, and her emotions have been all over the wall. Sometimes I burst out laughing when she says / does something irrational. This infuriates her even further, which makes me laugh even harder. It's a vicious snowball effect, and I'm unsure as to how she has not killed me yet. Please subscribe and leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.